Hi guys, welcome back to Crafty Quilting Designs. I hope you're well and having a really great day. Okay, so I've got this beautiful quilt for you. It is called a country log cabin. Okay, so it's slightly different to a normal log cabin. The only difference is it's starting with a bigger square in the middle. All right, as we know, that smaller square in the middle signifies the warmth or the center of the home with the log cabin. So this one is slightly bigger. Okay, I have used layer cakes for this one, so it's an easy one to put together, and it's a beautiful quilt, to be honest. It measures a 68 by 75, so it's a beautiful, slightly larger twin size, and I absolutely love it. So let me show it to you what it looks like. I don't know why I'm tippy-toeing. I don't know why I'm tippy-toeing, but anyway, so this is what the quilt actually looks like. So there you go. You've got a little bit of a sneak peek. It comes together very quickly, actually. I would say the only thing that took a little bit of while is the quilting, because obviously, knowing me, I tend to do a little bit more detailed quilting. So I quilted in each of the log cabin sort of restricted area for the size of the log cabins. But it's a nice quilt. The color scheme, I actually fell in love with it. I made this one for myself. I'm beginning to get into this habit now where I'm making quilts for myself. I've been wanting to make this for a long time, and so I decided to do it. So it's made not as a traditional log cabin, as I said, so you'll see in the video how I've actually put the blocks together. All right, so whereas a traditional log cabin, you will have one side one color, the other side another color. This one, it doesn't have that. All right, so have a look at it. As I said, it's a country log cabin quilt. There it is again, and I've used, as I said, layer cakes to make this. All right, so let me take you through how I actually did it, and we'll get started. So if you enjoyed my videos, don't forget to like and subscribe, hit that notification bell, and of course give it a thumbs up, because you know when you give it a thumbs up, it allows other people to see the video. All right guys, so enjoy and happy quilting. All right guys, so to this week's quilt is called a country log cabin throw. Now it's one I've been thinking about making for some time now, and the colors I'm going to be using is red and white and blue. Well, I say white, but obviously red with white spots, okay, and blue. It is a fat quarter. You need 8 fat quarters for this one. Now you should be able to get all of your cuts. We are going to be making 18 blocks in total, and I will show you how to make the block. And we also will be cutting 4 inches square for our center of our log cabin. Now we're not making a traditional log cabin. As I said, we're making a country log cabin, and that usually starts with a bigger square in the middle, which is 4 inches, whereas the traditional starts with, I think it's 2.5, right? So you need to cut your squares from your fat quarter. Now I have opted to use some ordinary, I say ordinary, so I had some red on white spots here, and I've used some of those for my squares also, as well as this particular blue for my square. I've also introduced an accent blue as well, and I'll show you those in a moment. Now to cut your fabrics, I just fold mine, and I iron them before so that they're nice and flat, because we know the fat quarters come folded, and so sometimes they have little wrinkles or creases in them. So I ironed mine nice and flat, and I laid them all together on top like so, lined it all up, and did my cuts, which moves very quickly. All right, so your cuts for your strips is 1.5, and I'm just cleaning up the edge on this one here. So it's 1.5 you need for each of your strips. Now initially when I did a sample block, because I usually do a sample block before I complete the whole quilt, I did cut all of the, I subcut all of the sizes that I need to make the country log. Okay, however, I felt it was a bit of a double job in the sense that when I got to the sewing machine and I sewed each one, because to make the block you are going to be sewing all the way around. It is not half as you would a log cabin, a traditional log cabin. So you're sewing all the way around with your colors. Okay, however, I felt that the sizes was sort of being odd in the sense that it was bowing slightly and I had to spend time trimming it up. So I thought I'm not going to do it that way. What I am going to do is simply just cut my strips and I will then go to the sewing machine and sew, then cut. Okay, and I felt that worked fine, and also it allowed me to any lot of minor imperfections. I was able to sort them out right there and there, and I didn't have that bowing problem. So I decided was to go the other way, which is obviously to sew then cut rather than to subcut all of the sizes. Now if you want to do the sizes, what I will do is put it in the description box down below, and that way if you want to subcut you can, but I think it moves a lot more quickly just going at the machine and sewing. All right, so let me show you one of the blocks now. Now if you are using red, okay, bear in mind that you need 3 layers. So with the red, let me just bring one of the blocks in. With the red you are going to end with a blue. Okay, so it's your red 4-inch square plus your 1.5, 1.5, 1.5. Okay, but you're ending with the blue. Now we are going to be needing 18 of these in total. However, you want to equate it, whether you do half and half, and when I say half and half, I'm referring to the color of the square. So whether you do half and half for blue and red is entirely down to you. All right, so this is what the blue one looks like. All right, however, your size of your blocks must be 10 inches. We also will require, and I'm going to be using cream background fabric, and I'm going to be using 10-inch. So these square up or they come up at 10-inch. Now, when you're making them, you shouldn't really need to square it up. You may get a little bow slightly on the edges, and I'm going to show you how to avoid that. However, all your sizes must be 10-inch. Okay, so if you start with the red, you must end with the blue, and if you start with the blue, you must end with the red. Okay, now I did do a little bit of alternating, and I did use an accent color. So for this one here, I popped in this particular color here, and I know it's nice and bright, and I love that. All right, I also did another accent color in one of my other blocks as well, and I added something very light in there, and I did like it as well. So this was one of my sample block, and I did like this one. So I'm not going to get rid of it. I am going to use it in the quilt. So you know, I love doing stuff like that, and I doubt that you would even notice it being there, to be honest, once the whole quilt top is completed. So you can decide how many of the blues and reds that you want. I think I have actually made more blues, and I did that deliberately because I just wanted to have more blue, because I think that the red is so bright and strong. Okay, but as it's a fat quarter, obviously the colors coordinate and contrast very well. So let's go over to the sewing machine now, and I will show you how to do this. Okay guys, so let's get into sewing. So I have my 4-inch square here, and I've just literally set up myself so that I have everything here and I don't really have to move. Now remember I said that before, when I did a sample block, I actually sort of subcut all of the length of the strips that I required, and I decided not to do that. And the reason why is because I felt when I subcut them and I stitched them on, I felt it was slightly bowing, so I had to keep trimming every time I add on a strip. So I decided was to try and do it the other way around, which is not subcut but sew then cut. So that's what I'm going to do, and I think that worked fine. And also I do press just to make sure in between adding around these strips into my square so that it stays nice and flat. So I'm starting with the blue, so obviously I'm going to use a red. I've already selected a 1/4 inch feet on, and I've got my pivot foot on as well, so that I can get the presser foot up without having to interfere with the machine. I just love that feature actually. I've taken off the light on my sewing machine because sometimes I find that when the light is on, it allows everything else around it to be dark. So I've taken off the light just to see what it works like. It might be a little bit different for me, but it also makes it easier for you to actually see, and it don't give the appearance that I'm filming in the dark. So I'm going to try and see what it's like. So it doesn't take long to do this. So I've just done a 1/2 inch seam there, and I'm just going to cut it. And of course, if you want to subcut, obviously the first strip is 4. Okay, so I'm just going to open that back. And I'm just going to go around as normal. So I'm not going to put the other one on that side. I'm just going to attach it to this side here. And again, it's right sides together. Now, obviously, I'm using a solid fabric, so there isn't any right side. I'm making sure that the seam is laid flat. I don't want it pressed up. So I was making sure it's nice and flat. Also, line up the top of your fabric there. That's important. And I think that's one of the things that can happen to make it bow. If it's not straight, then you'll find that you're trimming. So the new fabric that you're adding on, making sure it's really leveled with the previous one that you've already stitched on. So again, a 1/4 inch seam. And I'm just making sure it lines up. So remember, if your square is whatever color, that's the one you are adding on the next color. All right, so mine is blue, so I'm moving on to a red. Okay, so I'm just going to cut that again. So it's sew, then cut. It doesn't take any longer, to be honest. You will do the same thing if you were to subcut it anyway. Yeah, you still have to cut either way. I mean, this way you just kind of do 2 motions in one, where you sew and then you cut to your desired length. Again, making sure the top is lined up properly. That's really, really important. And again, anchor stitch and just line it up so it stays nice and flat. And just take your time. Don't stitch it very quickly. Okay, fold that back. Again, do my little cut. And finger press. And so far it still looks nice and square. Yeah, I don't see the need excuse me, to actually stitch. Let's see if I can make that. No, this one doesn't do it, so I'll get another strip and I'll add that on again right to the top. So with the country log cabin, you start with a 4-inch square and you literally sew all the way around. Now if you wanted to do a traditional log cabin, by all means go for it, but this is a quicker method, number one, and it's certainly different, and I like trying new things. I've been meaning to try this out for quite a long time now, so when the opportunity came up, well, I just couldn't pass it by, couldn't I? So I think I may possibly need more red strips. I didn't cut enough. I can see that already. Okay, so that's my first square in a square, so to speak. Right, and I'm just going to fold that back, and notice how I line it up, so I do not cut it like that. I just don't want to risk it being not cut level. So I like to fold it back and cut it with the level of the previous one. Or if you want, you can just fold it that way as well and really line it up properly with the length of the ruler so that you know it's not going to be bowed at all, and really straighten it up. Alright, so the next stage now, again, so I just give it a nice little press so it's nice and flat. And I usually check at this stage to see if I need anything needs trimming up, because if you add on when it's not straight, your square will come out wobbly. Okay, you'll have a wonky square. So just keep it nice and straight, and that looks fine for me. So I'm going to go to the blue now. And again, I'm going to start at the top there, and again line it up. Make sure I cannot see any red peeping through, and it's literally covered from point to point. And again, 1/4 inch seam. Anchor, a couple of stitches, and align it properly, and sew. Okay. I must admit, I do like this method. This method of cut, well, I should say sew then cut, is lovely. I do like it. That's something I do normally, to be honest. Now I can see a little bit there, so I'm going to go all the way down when I trim this. Trim that bit off. I'm making sure my hands, because I'm sitting at a slippery position here, whereby I'm not really controlling. Let me just turn it so I can, that's better position. And I can control it much better. That's the only difference, or the awkward bit about sitting down and actually cutting. You don't get that leverage. So just take your time. Hence the reason I said don't rush anything. Just take your time. Right, you fold that back as well. Let me take this thread off. Next one goes on. Now it's only 3 strips around the 4-inch square, so you're only doing this 3 times. So my final one will be the red. And notice I'm paying particular attention to making sure I line up that 1/4 inch seam correctly. I'm not just plonking it on and hoping for the best. I think my sewing machine needs a little bit of a clean, because it's not cutting the thread. So I think the thread cutter area might be a little bit full with thread, so it's not cutting, which is not a big deal. I usually give the machine a good clean before I actually start quilting. Just make sure it's all ready and good. So again, cut. I'm going to move it into those jagged movements, because I really am not sitting at a leverage whereby I can put pressure down. So that's my way of adding that pressure. So this one, let's see if it fits. Now another thing is, if the fabric does not extend to the length of the square, don't budge it. Don't try to stretch it, yeah, because all you will do is simply pull the square out of shape by doing that. So let it fit the way it's supposed to. Now this one is too short, so I'm going to move on to the other strip. I mean, by all means, you don't have to get rid of those, because you can use that in a scrap quilt at some point. So again, add on the blue there, line it up nicely. Anchor your stitches down and line it up to the edge. And take your time and just sew. So again, let me put it on the other side and give it a bit of a trim. Now one thing I've just noticed, because my machine, the slightest little any sort of seam that it hits, it has a tendency of moving. So I'll just bring it closer there so you can actually see where my 1/4 inch started out perfectly there and it moved. So I'm going to go back and realign myself there so I can get that proper 1/4 inch. Now if I decided to leave it like that, when I put the other red on, it is not going to be straight. It's going to be wonky, because this side up here will be accurate and down here will be out wider, because obviously, yes, I know it's a very minute quantity, but the importance of piecing is to make sure that 1/4 inch is consistent all the way out, and with this it's not. So you can clearly see where the presser foot or the machine foot actually moved. So I'm going to just rejoin there and give myself that proper measurement. And that's one thing that happens to my machine very much a lot. The fabric move on the feed dogs very, very quickly. So hence the reason it's a good idea to pin and to always just check that you really get in that 1/4 inch seam. And I can see it is back there. Excellent. So little things like that, and this is not the first block that's happened to. So I always check the seams, and you can see there where it's correct now, the second one. So just check your seams just to make sure that that does not happen and it's nice and even there. Okay, so I'm just going to add this one on. Again, line it up to the top, and I know this may seem silly that I keep reminding you to do this, but when you're making the blocks, you soon realize the pitfalls of where your block can become out of shape, and then you'll be wondering, well, what did I do wrong? You know, what happened there? So that's why I always make, regardless of the quilt, I always make a sample block so I can know what the pitfalls are before I get going. So, you know, being informed is good. You know what happens, so you can prepare yourself. So just take your time. At the end of the day, in making this quilt, there is not a lot of blocks anyway, because we are going to be using some 10-inch squares as well as the blocks here. So it pays to take your time to make this block. Remember, this block comes out at 10 inches square once you've added all 3 of your strips on. Okay, and then we're using 10-inch squares also to make up the whole quilt top. So I'm going to cut this one off, and I am going to go and get some more red, because I can see it all the way over there on the other side, and that means I have to move. So we just need to add on the red final strip, because we started with the blue and we're ending with a red. All right, so oh, I've just got a little bit here, probably I can do that. So one more red to the top and then all the way around, and then I will show you exactly how to lay out the blocks now. So let me complete this and I'll get back to you in a moment. Okay guys, so all the blocks are completed. This is the one we actually made together. As you can see, I've finished with a red around the edges, so blue, red, and if you start in with a red, it's blue, red, blue. Okay, if you wanted to mix some of them, I think I have done at 1 or 2 of the blocks, so I can find one. Oh, there you go. Here I've mixed it, and I think that looks pretty good as well. So you can do half and half, just like a traditional log cabin. All right, so it's entirely down to you. You need 18 of these blocks in total. Now you also need some 10-inch squares to make this quilt. Now I'm in 2 minds as to whether to use the white or the blue, and I'm thinking I'm going to go with the blue. I could possibly lay them both out and see what they look like, but I think I'm going to go with the blue. So I'm going to lay them out in alternating colors. So I will start with a blue first, and when I'm referring to the blue, I'm talking about the edges and not so much focusing on the middle. So a blue edge, and then one of the squares, one of the 10-inch squares, and then continue with the red. So I'll do that with all of the blocks, and then I'll show you what it looks like so far. So I'm going to go lay them all out now, and then I will give you a shot of what it looks like. So I think I'll put the white aside. I may possibly mix some, but I think I will stick with the blue if I have to be honest. So let me go do that now, and then I'll share the next stages with you. Okay, so here are the blocks. It's 5 across and 7 down. So obviously it's 35 blocks in total. Okay, now you can see my accent colors in the middle there. I've also done one of the blocks as a different block, and I want to know if you can actually figure it out. I'm not going to point it out to you, but I can clearly see it. Okay, it's the same colors, just done it in a different way to what is on the table at the moment. So remember, this pattern is the country log cabin. Okay, so it looks really lovely. So all I'm going to do now is just simply stitch all of these blocks together as they are, and I'm going to add probably 3 borders. So I'm going to keep the color scheme very similar. Now I did try it with the white, and I just think the white was just a bit too much. But you can obviously try white, but I think the blue itself was absolutely beautiful. Blue was what I had in mind originally to do the quilt with. So I think I'm loving the fact that I stuck to my guns really when I pictured it in my head. But yeah, so I'm going to move on now. Add the borders. I'm going to add 3, as I said, borders. So I'm trying to make a really nice big quilt. And I'm going to keep the color scheme very similar to red and blue again. And again, I'm going to keep the backing fabric blue also. As to whether or not I keep the same color as the blue squares, which is a 10-inch squares, may possibly keep the same, but I'll see how I go, because I'm designing it as I make it. So yeah, right, so that's it. Let's do some borders, and then I will show you hopefully the quilt top before I actually quilt it. Absolutely beautiful, absolutely loving it. Looks really good. Excellent color scheme. Right, see you in the next one, guys. Okay guys, so I have all of my squares here in the order of which I have picked them up. So this is my first one here, then the second, third, etc. Okay, and I am going to stitch them together, front sides together, of course using a 1/4-inch seam. So I'm going to put the second one on top, line it up together, and so now you should not have any problems with these because they all should match up quite easily. There are no matching seams, so you really shouldn't have any problem. Now remember, our square is 10-inch, as well as our block that we actually made. Our country cottage block is 10-inch also. So hence the reason why I said you really shouldn't have any issues in terms of the squares lining up, providing you've cut everything nice and straight. Now I'm just going to check my seam there, because I can see that it's not exactly a 1/4-inch, and I don't know if you can make it out there, but it's quite thin at the top and it should be wider than that, and that was my fault. I didn't actually put it straight towards next to the guide. So I'm just going to redo that, because what will happen is that when I do lay all the blocks out, all of the rows out, I will find that this one does not match up seam to seam on the previous block or the block underneath, because I would not have given it the proper 1/4 inch seam allowance. So I'm just going to re-stitch that so I get the correct seam allowance. And many times when you're making patchworks, many times if your blocks don't fit, that could be the problem, that you didn't align it properly so that your 1/4 inch seams are correct. There you go. Okay, and that is correct. Now, so I'm going to turn it over on the blue side, and you can see the first one there was incorrect and the second one is the right one now. Okay, so just check things like that. My machine, the feed dogs tend to move very quickly sometimes, and it glides the fabric through a lot more quickly. So if I'm not paying attention to really hold the fabric towards that guide firmly, then that will happen. So those are the things every machine works differently, and that's one of the knickknacks of my machine. So just hold, if that happens to you, just hold it closely to the seam guide, or just make sure you hold the fabric really nice and firm. So I'm just going to line this up again. Now this doesn't take very long to stitch together at all. It's very much, once you've made the blocks together, and I'm referring to the patchwork themselves, it comes together very quickly, very, very quickly. Okay, and notice as I am going, it's getting longer on the left. Okay, and I'm just taking the next one. And another way to check is because I know how I've laid it out. So I've laid it out in reference to my 10-inch square, then my patchwork, 10-inch square, then my patchwork. So I've laid it out in that way. So I can tell when it's the next time to pick up the other one. So I don't sew, the log cabin next to the log cabin, etc., or my 10-inch square next to the 10-inch square. So they must be one apart from each other. So again, 1/4 inch seam, make sure it's nice and accurate. And I have always double check, always double check, get into that habit. I don't know if you've ever noticed, but I always just stop and realign that presser foot again. I do that probably twice, because sometimes when I initially put it down, it doesn't always go right towards that seam guide. Another double check I do is making sure that my 1/4 inch, so when I put my fabric on there, there is a 1/4 inch mark there. It tells me exactly right there where my 1/4 inch seam, so I know that my fabric should lay on that stroke there, which it does. Right, so the next one again is a 10-inch square. Again, front sides together, and it's growing now, it's actually getting longer. Line it up. And I usually give an anchor stitch just to hold it down, get the two ends together, make sure they meet, and then just sew. Okay, this is the last one. Now I actually went looking for more because I'm thinking there's no way I finish it that quickly. It stitches together so quickly, guys. This is actually the last row here that I'm putting together, and then I'm going to take all rows, stitch them together, and show you the beautiful quilt top. It's looking so lovely. I'm actually really in love with it. Very, very lovely colors, and the pattern itself is great. So definitely have a go at making this quilt top. You will not be disappointed, guys. Definitely not disappointed. Now, I've just noticed something here. So this one has slightly moved down, Okay, so it's a little bit bigger at the end. Okay, now I wouldn't say it's moved down, but that's the measurement. It is correct on the measurement there. So all the edges meet, but for some reason the block is slightly bigger. No, it could have been my 1/4 inch seam wasn't right on this end. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to turn it upside down, and I'm going to put that looser fabric on the feed dogs so that the feed dogs take it in a lot more easily. And I don't know why that works, but it always works. So if you feel that any block you're making, the one on top might be slightly longer for whatever reason, and it must be slightly longer. Don't think it's going to be 2 inches long and you're going to magically sort it out, right? So the feed dog is going to take it in very gently and sort of solve that problem for you. And I can see it move there, so, and that was my fault. I moved the fabric. So I'm just going to take that out and just do that very quickly. There we go. Well, it was just an anchor stitch, so it wasn't in properly. So I'm just lining it up on my arm there, making sure it's edge to edge properly. Alright, I'm going to go back in and get that going now. Oh, I'm actually on the wrong side. I need the bigger side to be down. I'm just lining it up. It's actually not sitting flat, so I'm just making sure it's nice and flat. There we go. That's better now. Okay, right. Okay, let's have a look at that. Lovely. So what we're going to do now is lay all of these together, and I'm going to sew the rows on. So this is my 7th row. So what I have done is each of my rows, I have numbered them in reference to the layout, and I'm going to show you what I mean right now. Okay, so all of the rows have been stitched together. Now, when I mentioned about numbering your rows, this is what I meant. So this is my first row 1, row 2, row 3, row 4, row 5, row 6, and this is the row we actually stitched together. So this is row 7. Okay, now the important thing to remember when stitching together squares is to simply make sure that you pin these intersections here. So this will be my first pin, so obviously I'm going to pin that front sides together, and I'm going to pin it at each intersection because I want these seams to match up there and on the last one over there as well. So that's really important. Now, if you wanted something slightly offset, then you would have to move your fabric in that particular way. Now you can, if that's the look you're going for. Bear in mind though that you will lose some of your patchwork on the edge here. It may be acceptable on this edge because at the end of the day it is just a 10-inch square, but if you're losing your log cabin, your country log cabin, then that will make it a little bit funny. Okay, so but the way I have designed it is simply to make sure that it's lined up. All right, so that's the way I've actually designed the quilt, so it's all lined up. But in my head you get that alternating look anyway when it comes to the layout. Now hopefully you could notice that I've added on another row, because initially it was just a 6 rows, I think. All right, so it was yeah, I think it was a 6 row, so I've added on a 7th row. All right, so let me stitch these all together, and I'm going to add on 2 borders, and then I will then show you some quilting and what I have decided to do, how to quilt this particular quilt. It looks absolutely beautiful. I'm actually loving it. Really have fallen in love with this quilt top. Okay, so let's get it all stitched together now, and I shall show you some quilting as well in terms of how I'm going to quilt all of these dead space, because that's really what they are. Okay, so we've got to figure out what we're going to do in there. Quilting in between these spaces here is okay because obviously they're restricted lines and you can do anything, but using up this space is you got to put a little bit more thought process into it. Okay, so let me go to that now and I'll show you the next stage. Okay guys, I'm going to do some free motion quilting. I'm just going to do some flower meander, and then in the other block I'm just going to fill in the lines as we would. So I'll do the flower meander in the plain block for now, and then I'll move over to the other one. Now what I'm going to do is start with a hook. I'm just sealing in my stitches there, and all I'm going to do is start with a little hook and then go all the way around with that hook. So I'm just going to go like that and just go all the way around just to make like a flower. I'll just speed this up a little bit too slow. A little hook, and then come all the way. And that's a little bit too fast. I'll just flop this quilt up because remember we're dealing with gravity here, so all the way around. When I get back to my starting point, let me just remove this here. And what I'm going to do is just go to another hook, go all the way around again. Get back there, going to do another one, and I'm going to go back and just echo that. So I've been going this way, so I'm going to go. So I've been doing like a normal J, so I'm going to go the opposite direction now. So I'm going to come out and go this way, make a nice little hook, come back round, and make that little rose, little flower there. Okay, if I want again, I can come back over and just echo that. And then finish up there. And then I can go the other way again. It's up to you how big or small you actually do that flower. So just keep going round. And this is nice and easy to fill in spaces quite quickly. So again, come out there, do a little hook, go around. So I'm in the corner here now, so what I'm going to do is echo my way all the way back round and go back up on that side. Echo there. Okay, so I'm fine. I'm out of the corner. Do a hook. Come around. Come out. Then go back again on myself. Get rid of that space there, so try not to leave any gap. One thing about this particular pattern of quilting is that it's easy to leave gaps, so just try not to do that. Hopefully you can see the pattern printing out, hopefully. So that's it. I'm going to continue with that, and when I get to the other side I will show you what it looks like. Okay guys, so the quilt is ready and it looks absolutely gorgeous. As you can see, all of my swirls on the borders, the 2 borders in there. And there you're looking at the country log cabin itself. I've did some meandering shapes and my flower shapes as we did in the video. So yeah, remember this for my sample block for the Christmas stars. Looks absolutely gorgeous, very, very beautiful. I would encourage you to make one. It's a very simplistic quilt, doesn't take long to stitch together, and everything comes together really nicely. On the back of the quilt you can see I've just used a red floral print, and again you can see at the edge of that print I've used a blue star border, and you can see all the quilting lines on the cushion that I did for the sample Christmas block. But yeah guys, so this quilt is really beautiful. Have a go, have a try at it, let me know how you get on. Just enjoy the process of good quilting. So once again guys, do like and subscribe, hit that notification bell, give the video a thumbs up, and if you enjoy my channels, please support it by sharing the video out. And again, I'll see you next time on Crafty Quilting Designs. Bye for now and happy quilting.